Okay, Lowell, take one.
That was like an Italian. Well, Lowell, welcome. I mean, it gives me great pleasure to have you here today on your recent nomination as Vice Patron. You have such a wealth of experience with the club, and you've gone through such challenging things and also, I'm sure, enjoying things. Maybe first, what brought you to sailing?
Well, after university, I went to San Francisco to live. And my roommate's boss invited us sailing. And that's the first time I've ever been on a boat. I liked it so much, I took lessons the next week, and I started sailing there. And I stayed with the sport as, just casual sailing, never competitive, except once, And San Francisco blowing like hell.
And cold.
Cold, strong tide, but you learn very quickly how to survive on this. And that's how we started. I started. And I met Phyllis, and for whatever reason, I guess in order to marry me, she liked it too. So the two of us both liked sailing. And then we moved back to Hong Kong, and Phyllis was applying for a job, and Robert Wilson, who was
another vice patron?
To be a Commodore.
Yeah.
At that time, he was probably a rowing captain or something.
Mm-hmm. So we're talking around, what, the 80s? Or
no, 70s.
70s, late 70s?
71, in fact.
Well, 71, right?
Yeah. So anyway, he found out that we sailed. So instead of hiring her as a job, he proposed us as members. $800, I think. It was $500 or $800 to join the club.
Wow.
Why not? And then a friend of mine, I took him out sailing on somebody else's boat, the owner of Vitasoy, one of the few Chinese at that time sailing. Mm-hmm. Wanted to crew, so I crew, and I took him. And then he liked it. And he saw that, and he said, you have to be a member to buy this boat. And would you like to go half with me? And I said, sure. And that's my first Dragon.
Wow.
Because that was the only one, 8,000 and share. And now, unfortunately, Christian passed away, and his son now is sailing Dragons. So we have a second generation person.
You touch on a subject that says at the time when you started sailing, there were not a lot of local Chinese.
Yeah, there weren't that many. We have Bolay. He built Bolay as a hobby. Yeah. You have the Lee Sang family, one of them. Hai Sang family, so that was the Lee. And then you have Vitasoy, and that's, a handful of Claude Ho, and me. And then later on, we have more and more. Carl and Gaston, all these start coming in.
There's something special between you and this club, because you've put in
so
many years in committees and so what prompted you? You wanted to
what happened
change,
is I wasn't,
you wanted to become a Commodore? Or?
Nope. What happened is I just remember I never dreamed of doing anything else. But we enjoyed the club, and I was never competitive. I was pretty bad.
You could have fooled me the other day on the water.
No. Yeah, but anyway, it was pretty bad, and we just coasted along. And then a Canadian came along and invited the Dragon class to participate in the World Championship in '83 in Vancouver. And Nick Burns formed a team, and then there's a guy named Graham Aldrich, who's no longer here. But anyway, he said he'd like to go. Will I be his crew? So I said, sure. But I didn't know what's going on at all. I was always last in Hong Kong, and we have a sailmaker called John Brinkers who worked for UK. So that's our third. And I don't even know what Lee bowing is. I know this, and they kick me all the time and get me to pull this, pull that. Graham Aldrich was so worried about chartering the boat, he brought the whole gear, every single gear you can imagine for a boat with us. And that suitcase is so heavy that John Brinkers broke his back and couldn't sail. And we were bad. I mean, first of all, I'm no bad. The good guy cannot sail because his back is gone. So that's how I learned. And I look at those Dragon, I said, wow, this is Dragon compared to what we have.
Lots of strings.
No, at that time, no. At that time, no. So I came back and started rebuilding my Dragon. And I think that particular year, and I was lucky, I have a very good crew who was a marine engineer working for the government, so he has a lot of time. So he's helping me. And I think we won most of the races, not only the series, but we won most of the races. And Thomas Cook started Round the Island race as a whole group for the all the boats,
right?
Because the Dragons would have
what
their own
year
race.
Would that be?
I think 84, 83, but anyway, 83 or 84. And my boat won overall. The name is on the first name on Thomas Cook Round Island race, which we are still presenting.
And what was the name of the boat?
Tin Long for D10, 10 Long. I remember coming back in, and I tipped my hat to the camera. They were filming, and the guy shouted, "You have to win to be on camera." They figured we come in so late. The handicap helped.
It certainly did. So you've got a very special affinity with the around the island race.
Around the race.
It got interrupted, right?
Yeah, it got right because the Marine Department said, we don't want the boats out in the western side of the harbor, because that was after I was Commodore. Mm-hmm. And I was in Japan flying back to Hong Kong, and I saw Dr. Patrick Ho, who was head of Home Affairs, HAB. And then we started talking. That was during Sars. He said, I have all this fun because LCSD is under me. Mm-hmm. And I have all this money that I would need to create sports events. What do you suggest? So I said, perfect, Round Island race. We haven't been able to do that because we're doing half one, and there's no reason why we shouldn't. He said, sure, let me take care of it. So I came back and I called Marine Department, a guy named Tucker or Tubby or something. He was the head, and he's the guy who'd been saying no to us. So I went to see him and I said, I talked to Patrick Ho, and he said, we should start again. And then he said, well, he's a bureau, I'm only a department. So if he says yes, I say yes. And then in order to make sure that we can continue, so I asked him what we should do. So he said, what you should do is get all the stakeholders together to support this. So we formed the first committee, and I know I'm not a really hard worker. So I have Jimmy Fogger, who knows about sailing, and I have Elsa Angus, who's still working for the club.
She's our sailing manager, yeah?
Yes, she was sailing secretary, or sailing manager at that time too. So I got them to be on the committee, on my outside, sailing side. And then the government got the Ferry Operators Association, the Pilots Association, everything you can think of, the Barges Association, and we formed this committee. And we got the windsurfers involved and all that. And the Bureau liked it, and they said, well, we'll give you $1 million to run this as our sponsor. I said, we can't find sponsors, and we have all these safety boats and all this, it's going to cost me money. He said, we want international participation too. So I said, oh, good. I know a lot of Olympic sailors by that time. I said, our criteria is you have to have 2 gold medals before we invite you. So
pretty tough criteria.
And then I asked the cruiser who would like one of them as your on your boat.
Of and all course, the hands went up.
So that's how the first one came about. And we allowed windsurfers, right. But they make a rule that you have to have 1 safety boat behind each windsurfers. And we asked Windsurfers Association, he said we can only hustle up 7 boats. So there were only 7 windsurfers. Mm. And unfortunately, the windsurfers no longer.
No, they don't.
Come
so how many boats did you have that first edition?
I think it's about 100 something.
Oh.
Yeah, we have, because
still very
we have,
healthy.
Yeah, it's good. And then from then on, you know, we don't have to have these meetings anymore. It's automatically approved once it's past the thing. So I'm very happy it's seeing that, you know. I know.
Yes, I mean, we had the 18th edition since the
Since
2003, and it was
and we
great.
have to thank Sars.
Yes.
It's kind of how things happen.
Yeah, but it's seizing that opportunity, right?
Yeah, not that, but you know, it just happened. Things always just happen. You cannot plan it. You know, you cannot say, "Let me see who can see" and all that.
And certainly, a lot of things happened under your stewardship, under those years around which were times of change in Hong Kong, handover. There was the issue, like you mentioning, the government at one stage wanted to move the club.
Yes, that was during my term as Commodore.
Yeah.
And the rumor was that Boon Leung, who was the Lands Department, wanted us to move to Taitam. They've just finished the breakwater, and they said, we'd like to reclaim this and send you there. And LHKYC scheduled a hearing on harbor protection, harbor usage. And I thought that would be a great opportunity to do this, to present outside of the story. But as a Commodore of the Yacht Club, you don't have enough power. Mm-hmm. So and Carl Kwok at that time was chairman of Sailing Federation. Yeah. And windsurfer had just won a gold in '97, but this is probably '98 or something like that. So the three of us went to LHKYC, and you can see the minutes. They were talking about how if the water is clean, we'll use the harbor. But the main point we tried to make to the LHKYC member was we show up with pictures of San Francisco Harbor, Sydney Harbor, you know, all the beautiful harbors, Vancouver Harbor, with lots of sailboat, and then a picture of Rotterdam, you know, I mean, steamships and
refineries.
So, and then we said, what would you like Hong Kong to look like? You want to be like that or this? And then of course it's clear and understood they like to have it. So the point was made that without clubs, without this club, you won't get this. How are these boats coming here to use it? Because we had heard that it's going to happen, you know. So, you know, that kept us here, you know. But I should be smarter.
Yes.
If I were...
You should have said both.
Yes. That's what we should have said, because Sonny Silas did that for Victoria Rowing Club. Yeah. They want to reclaim their little Deepwater Bay thing, and he said, sure, you know, but keep a little bit for us, and why don't you give us Saikong out in Country Park? So they got that, but they never reclaimed their side, so they have both.
But certainly it took some great lobbying and negotiation and convincing to maintain this club. So you say things just happened, and the other thing that happened during or on or around your time as Commodore was the name, the royal prefix. So what happened then? What happened then? Tell us something.
That was
not
one of the
everybody knows
reasons
about
why I was nominated to run against the nominating committee again. And as far as Commodore, is how do we deal with the name Royal? Because they didn't like the idea of it being pushed. And in fact, during that time, Gordon McWeeny was the chairman of Royal Hong Kong Jockey Club at that time. There were only 3 Royal clubs, recreation clubs: Royal Jockey Club, Hong Kong Jockey Club, Royal Hong Kong Golf Club, and Royal Hong Kong Yacht Club. Gordon McWeeny got the message that they would like all of them to drop Royal, which is proper, you know. Jockey Club's easy, 500 voting member. They all want to keep their voting member, so passed. And Golf Club also, they don't have the ordinary member, full member, they don't have to have a count. They just show a hand, passed. You know, it didn't even count, really. So majority. But we have to live with the fact that any change of article, which is a name change, you have to have 75%
that's right.
of the vote. And we were short by a few votes.
So it was
the first
close.
time, it was close. You know, so the second time was bigger margin because people say, you know, you're pushing, you lost, and you pushed it again. And so David just told us this story that he woke up one day and said he had an idea.
David, as in David
David
Kong.
Kong, yeah, he was a Commodore.
Yeah,
at that time,
just
was
before
vice,
you, right?
yeah. And then he woke up and say, hey, we don't do. He went and checked into if we have a Chinese name registered. So he said, why don't we register it without the royal? And that's how the whole thing started. And then he turned around and asked me to do the rest. And so I formed a committee, which is three prominent members of the society. Hector Ross, who was government before, and well-respected sailor. The head of Hong Kong University, who's still sailing, and Edwin Lau, who was the treasurer for the club, and he's also very well connected in China. So the four of us have this committee, basically to give more power behind David's suggestion. Because if you just say the committee think of it that way, then you don't represent. But if you have a senior group of people saying this, it's a good idea, then it's easier. And then my job is to go and talk to the right people. So as it turned out, my father's youngest brother was a senior person at the foreign ministry in China. So I went to, and the foreign ministry have their own office in Hong Kong.
Yep.
And then you have NCNA, who was in charge. It's like a state. They have a government within the government. They have a shadow government for Hong Kong. They have this ministry, you have sports department. So I went to see the foreign people, and they said, why even bother? It's not an issue for them. So, and then I went to NCNA, and NCNA said, no, you know, it's a sports department. It's a basketball player who is, you know, woman, tall. And she said, no, you have to change. So, you know, time to sit down with her and how are we going to solve this problem? So the way we presented it was, you know, if we were to go for a vote, we have to be law-abiding citizens. We cannot just, if we were to put it on a vote, if we win and you have the name change, the press is going to say you pushed it 3 times, right? If we lose, you lose face again. So we're in a no-win situation. Number 2 is that of all the clubs in Hong Kong, we are the only club where the Queen is the patron. The other 2 were represented by the governor. The governor was the patron representing the Queen. And we have a royal charter versus, and we have our own flag, the royal ensign, that belongs to our club. So I said, to have face, you know, to be really thing, what if the club write to the Queen and ask her to resign and give up the royal ensign and all that? And they said, okay, if you can do all that, we accept it. And David Kong wrote that letter, drafted by Jethro, who was about to go.
Yeah.
And he knew all the British things. So, and it was accepted. And the court wrote back and say, we understand all this and we're happy to do it for you. I mean, of course, we wrote it very nicely. It's all on file. So we made a commitment to be totally cut off, you know, and that commitment still holds.
Yeah. It's just that issue, but not just the name. We had to change logos. I mean, we had already a dragon.
No, the dragon has always been there, and there's a crown on top.
Yeah.
And then Claude Ho, who's an interior designer, made a new change because you have the Chinese, because now we are Chinese and English. And the first design was, but you don't have to, you have the little flower in the middle.
Little flower, you mean the Bohemian,
Yeah,
right?
but Bohemian to represent Hong Kong. In Chinese, when you have a flower in your ass, that means you got whipped. And
That's a great story.
I can't have a flower. We can't have a flower on the ass. It's in right in the middle is where the ass is. So we have it on the side. That's why it's kind of odd. You have the flower here and then Chinese it up. The natural design would be right in the middle.
Yeah.
But you have to be Chinese to understand.
No, but so now I understand, because I've always wondered why is it
in the side?
Shoved, yeah,
because
shoved
it's
to the side.
You know, if you,
yeah, we could. Yeah, I
you
could
can
see
imagine,
it, yeah.
right? If it's right here, is where the ass is. You will be whipped.
This is a fantastic story, because it's true. You put people together, and we're able to resolve or discuss certain things, and it shows really that attachment you have with the club.
No, because both Phyllis and I really enjoy being members of this club. So we never thought of, being part of administration. We just come in on that. But once you got into it, you could, because nobody knew who Lowell Chang is, because I've never won races or anything until I started winning races. Until I started racing.
with those gold medalists on board.
Yeah, no,
right?
And then when I started building dragons, and won the world championship, then right away they call and say, "Would you like to be on general committee?" And that's how it got. And once you're on a general committee, then you realize how much fun it is to serve, because it's a lot of work, but it's fun, and it's an honor to do this, to be able to be part of the history of a club. How many people get a chance to do that?
What sort of fun did you have when you served?
You see things happening around you, because it's never me who came up with this idea, that idea. I'm more the
the product.
To make sure it happened. David Kong came up with the idea of Royal, and Don Hughes is a guy who was architecture department for the government, came up with the idea of converting the boatyard. And boatyard was where our bistro used to be.
Yeah.
And with the sheds where they stick the boat in there to do repair. And he said, if we open up this wall, we have fantastic view and all that. Why don't we do this? And I just happened to be on the committee, and we were able to push that through. And that's part of fun to see it. And I was in committee when Middle Island, the rower said, we have to change our they have a tin roof, these army
concept, huts. Yeah.
Huts. And then right away, we pushed it. You got to work to make sure general committee is willing to spend the money, and go for it. Because all of them, when it's first proposed, were all money-losing projects. And then David Kong is the guy who, when he was just on the committee, is the guy who came up and said, why don't we have moorings in Shell Cove? And Warwick Down was the one that saw the potential in Middle Island and say, why don't we save more in Lama Channel? But we can expand the base by doing landfill. And we have committee members who are very active with that sort of things, who serve in this committee. So you package all together, and that's part of fun. And then to see it happen, Compass Room, and they do a renovation. And then I'm sure after me, you have the new addition and all this. But that's what's exciting about being on the committee, to see things like that being accomplished. And if you are part of it, if you put in your little weight, and it's well worth all that time.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I'm very pleased you mentioned the fun aspect, because we chose to do it. It's pro bono. We're not getting any compensation for it. So if you're not having fun, why do it? Right? And that's really the key. And sometimes that I always mention to people.
In the old days, where before I told you earlier that I ran against somebody and lost. And before that, nobody ever run against it. It's always four vacancy, four candidate, thank you very much, gone, passed. Until I show up one time and ran against somebody and I lost, which is that. And then I showed up again and won. And then if you take a look at all the recreation clubs, I think we're the only one that always have candidates more than vacancy.
That is
Which
very
is
true.
And which is healthy for the club. Personally, I think it's very healthy for the club to have people wanting to do it.
Yeah, it shows people are engaged.
Yeah, and they have to lobby, they have to do this to get the job, and therefore it's important that we keep this up. Otherwise, you become stale. You know, I think the club becomes stale.
Certainly stale is not something that springs to mind when we talk to you, we look at a bit of what you've done. And I'd like to go back a bit on the dragon story, right? I mean, so you got involved in dragons, and what brought you to becoming a builder of dragons?
No, what happened is we're going to have a 90th anniversary for dragons in Hong Kong. They were here before the war, known as A-class, which is anchor for the designer, the name of the designer. And after the war, they were known, or during that time, it's changed the name to Dragon.
Okay.
And after the war, the club decided to build 10 at Whampoa Shipyard in Hong Kong. And they built 10 and then a class camp. And then it's starting to get old. By the 80s, they were already 40-some years old. And they put fiberglass skin on it, but the wood would start rotting inside and all this. So it's time to go. And then I show up in the world, and then I redone my dragon and make the boat a lot faster. And then one of the guys in America had this mold that he didn't know what to do with. So he's been trying to sell me this mold for 3 years. So I met him in Ireland for a European Championship. I met him again in the world, in France, in Douarnenez. And every time he's pushing me to buy this. And I was lucky because I have a crew who was marine engineer with the Hong Kong government. And then another dragon sailor was an engineer too, the two of them. And I talked to them and said, oh, we'd love to design. We'd love to be able to get hold of that mold and do something with it. So they provided technical know-how on how to build the boat. And all I did was sign a check. But I have my ideas because at that time Phyllis was crewing for me. And I wanted to make sure you don't have to be a macho man to sail a dragon. So I started thinking, oh, how do I make sure the ratio are such that she can do it? And the other one reason is with the winch down below, you're always jumping down and the boat is going, you like this every time you want to adjust something. So I said, well, I saw some place that there was another boat, a J24 or something, that have a windward sheeting. So I said, why can't we put it in the Dragon? So we show up with that. And the fiberglass boat being built at that time were just built by wood carpenters.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and they're good craftsmen, but they have no idea what to do with fiberglass. And we, with the two marine engineers we have, who were building boats for the police, they know how to reinforce it and make sure the boat is well built and structure is well done. So we changed a lot of the inside to make sure this boat is strong. So that's another, godsend. So I started building with all these ideas. And in one of the Round Island race.
So which year was that?
Probably 86,
Okay.
I think 86.
Mid-80s sometime,
86, early 86 or late 85. Probably 86. I came back to a club having a drink, and the guy walked in and greeted me. He said, I was flying in and saw all those boats, so I thought I'd come to a club and see. He was Vladimir Pendelovsky, who won 2 gold in soling. And I met in France, in the world, because I didn't remember him, because these are very well-known guys, and I'm on the bottom. So, and of course, right away I said, I'm building new boats. Would you like to go see it? He said, well, the builder in Denmark will sponsor my boat, so I'm taking my boat there in Australia. So I said, you come take a look with me. And we went. He saw what we were doing. He said, I'm going to take your boat instead of my boat. So I said, I'm not.
Quite an
Yeah,
endorsement.
and then, because he liked the idea. And then I said to him, but, I'm an amateur builder. You have to buy the boat. You can't give it to you, But I ship it to you free. Ship it down free. He said, don't worry, I'll take care of that. So he took it, and the 4th boat I built won the world. And my ad at that time to selling the boat was him showing him the boat and a little cartoon character, and said he could have won it on a bathtub. Because he was that good. So I'm not sure.
It's a great story. I mean, you create all those events,
And
by getting people together, and then suddenly you come up with a world-winning boat.
And within 6 months, every single boat in Europe, or the competitive boat, had windward sheeting. Which is, because it's such a good idea, people, of course.
You seem to have a lot of good ideas, huh?
No, I didn't.
Well, there's another one. I think you co-founded the Royal Silver Cup.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that one?
That was in Geelong, where the boat won the championship. And everybody
so
said...
we're, again, mid-80s?
87.
87, yeah.
86 Christmas, 87, yeah. And somebody had been saying, there will be a Danish prince coming for the competition. So I was expecting a young guy, prince, so. And I came into my mooring, we were there. I learned how to prepare for a championship from Pendelovsky. We arrived there almost 3 weeks before the championship, and we tuned 2 boats every day to make sure it's working.
Yeah.
So, and it's really hard work to do that. To make sure the boat is perfect. And so one day, when the real championship is about to come, I came back to a mooring, and there was a boat assigned next to me. And the guy, 2 big Danish guy, turned around and said, "Ni hao," to me. And I was surprised, The 3rd guy was another good sailor who was with Pendelovsky when they won the 2 gold. So they split. So I was surprised. As it turned out, one of the crew is married to a Chinese, and the other one studied Chinese in Hong Kong University. And that's the Prince Consort. I wasn't expecting an old guy. But anyway, and then he said, "Ni hao." And then Geelong is a small town with not very good restaurant, and he loves to eat, drink, just like me. So we almost have dinner every night because there's no place else to go. There was only one restaurant and all this. And we became friends. So, and during that time, I suggested to him that why don't we start this interport, which we had with Manila. I said it would be fun if the 2 of us can do it. So, and he said, good idea, And I happened to know another English guy who was there. So I told him, he said, yeah, we'd like to join. And which of the club I belong to that would let me be a team member, because he said, Royal Tam, there are too many good sailors. But Royal Yacht Squadron, I'm sure I make the team. So that's how Royal Yacht Squadron got invited, because the 3 of after the World Championship, the boat was sailed to another person. While we were sailing, somebody called and said, we'd like to buy the boat. So the boat was shipped to Denmark in Easter time. And then I arrived there, and Prince Consort said, well, I'd like to have tea with you and to talk about this. So I said, sure, 4 o'clock. And then Benalowski asked me, why don't we, I'm doing an America's Cup campaign, why don't we go sailing? So I said, sure, but I have this appointment. He said, just call. So I called and said, I'd be a little late. And then I didn't realize how wet America's boats were, 12 meters were. And I show up, my first time in the palace, wet shoe, wet pants, and a squash all the way to his room. And late, of course.
And late on top of it, right? I mean,
no, but I
when you do things, you do things well, yeah.
But anyway, we had a wonderful, visit, and then that's how we started. And Hong Kong won the first one in Denmark, not in Hong Kong. We went there, and we say it's a friendly thing, and you want to get all the owners involved, and you rotate. That's important at a host. And they did. They rotated the worst sailors on the last day, and we were able to beat them. And they kept it because they could rotate better sailors, right? So, but that's good sportsmanship.
So it's still going on?
Right now, after his death, it's up in the air right now, and because of COVID, I haven't been able to go to Denmark and start talking about the future. But I'm in touch with the Crown Prince, who was designated successor for this trophy.
So it's a call out right now to say, let's get it going again, right?
The participating club would like to see it continue, and it's just whether we continue with or without their participation.
Yeah.
Right now, Prince Henrik has always show up, and always show up in Europe with the Royal Yacht. The Interport is fun because you get to become
friends
know the
with people.
With your own team more than anything else, because you're now sailing together. In Hong Kong, you sail against each other. You have a drink afterwards and all that. But during the Interport, you have dinner together. You have, and during those 3 days, you became friends. And that's the camaraderie amongst your own team is more important to the other teams. Of course, that helped. Because of it, I know a lot of sailors.
So what happened to the dragon mold and the dragon
mold? I
building?
sold it. I gave it to the Turks. Unfortunately, we strapped it down too tight and changed the shape a little bit, and they couldn't use it. And they're not happy, but I gave it to them, so what can you?
Sorry.
So
you won't be able to replicate the story. So but you never know. Would you be interested in a new mold, or is that
the way it is built is supposed to last longer than commercial boats. I built it as a hobby, and I lost money on every single boat I built, but it was fun. So it didn't matter.
Well,
and I stopped building because when you run out of ideas, I ran out of ideas how to improve this, and there was no fun anymore. It was fun because, as you build, you say, I'm going to build another one, which to get that in there. And then another year you do it. It took me 10 years to do it.
So how many did you build?
31. Because I want to build 3 per year. Because that way you can keep it in a mold, you can, to stay proper shape, to build properly. I'm very proud because in Japan, there was a boat builder who came to Hong Kong and saw the yard, which is, and his yard, he was building the wheelbase for Formula cars. You can eat off the floor for his fiberglass work. But he said he liked our concept, and he bought one instead of building one himself. So he just said, I like Dragon. I like the way you build it. So,
And how many are still competing, sailing today out of the 31?
I think probably only in Japan and here.
Yeah.
And there's one in Ireland, and there are a few. I don't know. I really lost count. But the main problem with that is when we make the keel, it's a cast iron keel. At that time, which is almost 30 years ago, almost 40 years ago, 30. So at that time, when you mold it, we put stainless steel rods for a boat cast into the cast iron. And on the boat, you have wires sticking out so to prevent it from slipping out. Yeah. And you bolt it down. And then suddenly this boat started weakening and break. And then they did a study, because you always think electrolysis between the two is the stainless steel will be the stronger one and the cast iron will go. That's why you do this. But in fact, because of casting, the temperature changed it. Stainless steel became the weaker metal, and the cast iron, so they start breaking at the mold. So I have to tell all the owners, because in Europe, when you raise, they just lift it off from a boat there, and it's dangerous. So I said, you have to wrap around like this, or you have to drill new holes to make, to make it strong. And so that's why I took all my boat back to Hong Kong, because I didn't want to have an accident.
No, that's very wise of you.
Yeah.
So very interesting story, and the dragons. I mean, when we see you, we see also your Phyllis, and how that competition in the dragon going. I mean, I remember you telling me once, yes, well, I could. Instead of sailing with me, I would have a dragon, then she could sail have her own boat.
No, not that. But anyway.
It's something to that effect.
The first boat I built, I figured it's going to be a mistake. And I can't sell that mistake to somebody. So I said, Phyllis, would you like to have a boat? And she said, yes. And it was 20 kilo over.
Little did she know that.
But she loved it, and then we never sailed since, except in Europe. When we go to Europe, then we sail together, because then because it saves cost, and then I don't have to look for two crews, two boats, and others. And we have fun.
No, certainly. I mean, again, just recently, you both were on the water and both competed very well, and represented the Hong Kong Dragon fleet very well.
I'm not sure, but anyway, we did okay.
I'm pretty sure.
But in the last pursuit race, what was a Lipton Cup?
Lipton Cup?
Yeah, we came third, which is not bad.
You were the first dragon?
Yeah, first dragon.
In front of another dragon?
Yeah.
Called Zephyr?
No, not for that one. That one, on the Lipton Cup, I was in front of Phyllis.
Yeah.
Zephyr didn't sail at all. No. But the other one, around the island, is...
So a little thing is that whenever one visits your place, there's so much memorabilia. And one thing that captured my attention was a fantastic painting from Stephen Jews.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a bit about that painting?
Stephen Jews that painting was the 200th anniversary for the Royal Yacht
Bicentennial.
It's commissioned by the Royal Yacht Squadron. But they decided that they're going to commission a bigger painting by him on another subject. So they put that painting on auction, silent auction. So I've always wanted his painting, but I couldn't afford it because at that time. And I commissioned a lesser painter, Martin McQuail. And I commissioned more than one painting. I commissioned quite a few paintings of different boat I owned or one sailed, or different places that I've sailed. So, and when that thing is for sale, by that time I thought I can afford it. So I put in a bid. Being a computer idiot, I saw a bid, 2 bids on the same painting at the same price. So I said, oh, somebody else wants it. So I bid again, one more. And then show up 2 bids. As it turned out, I was bidding twice. And I bid twice again.
It's a fantastic story. That.
But that painting is is really.
There's a beautiful quality about the
Yeah,
water,
the water,
that he's
really,
able to do.
But Martin McCreel, that the club now owns.
Yeah, I was going to get to those two fantastic paintings we've got down in the bistro.
Yeah, and
so
then I commissioned
one is of your dragon coming to Kellett, and the other one is of the
X99 that I own out Sailing and Shuttle Cove.
Two beautiful paintings too.
Yeah, and now he's the official portrait painter for the Royal Yacht Squadron and for the Royal Thames.
Wow.
So he has painting up on the wall on both of them. So, and we have two. I have one on us, the boat winning in Geelong. And we have three of them. We have one in the chart room.
Yes, the chart room in the back. Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
there's one. Because that one, we have 5 Hong Kong boats on the world. Yeah.
But again, thank you very much for spending some time with us, Lowell, and for us to get to know you a bit more. Such a great raconteur, I said, and we're very fortunate to have you as our vice patron.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.